want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Yeah, we ran out of patience. Boil up with the cold hard hatred. I can feel the vibration. Feet in the streets, it's a new sensation. I wanna break faces on the pavement. I wanna make greatness look complacent. Adrenaline awakened, I can taste it. We can make an impact, grab and then take it. Like a disease, bring them to their knees. Take the their disease. Just like the wind.
Ladies and gents, I am the one and only DJ Storms. I would like to welcome each and every single one of you back here to a very special Wednesday edition of the Eye of the Storm, where we sit down with the hottest professional wrestlers in the state and across the country, talk about their origins, their inspirations, aspirations, best matches, etc., etc. I am, of course, you already know, I am DJ Storms. They call me Mr. Controversy and the operator of the best damn Twitter handle known to mankind. And today, I have the pleasure of sitting down with easily one of the hottest tag team professional wrestlers on the East Coast. He is currently involved in the Crockett Cup for NWA. He is one half of the ISPW World Tag Team Champions. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome, for the very first time on the channel, one half of the Now. His name is Vik Dalishus. How you doing, brother?
The time has finally arrived. The time is now. Here I am. It is long awaited. You've been trying to make this happen. We had a scheduled interview, and I had to reschedule on you, so I appreciate you making this happen for me, and I am happy to be here. It is a pleasure.
Not a problem, man. And again, well, actually, it should be me thanking you. Thank you for taking the time. I greatly appreciate it. But yeah, we are going to get down to the nitty gritty in just a little bit. First things first, obviously, I need you to tell everyone where can they find you on social media.
You can find me on Twitter at @TheNowVik. And you can find me on Instagram at Vik Dalishus. The Facebook, we share a Facebook between Hale and I. So if you search the name, first name is Vik, the last name is Hale, and it is a shared Facebook profile. So you can also find us on Facebook under The Now, and ProWrestlingTees.com/TheNow for your latest Now gear.
Be sure to check out all those links in the description, ladies and gentlemen, because you are absolutely going to want to live in the now, especially after this sit down. And of course, they are representing NWA right now, the future Crockett Cup champion winners. They are my pick, easily, hands down.
Right. Yeah.
But of course, you can follow me on social media at HistoryMakerDJS. Of course, that is at HistoryMakerDJS on both Twitter and Instagram. You can add me on Facebook as well. For collaborations and business inquiries, please send me an email. My email is, of course, StormsTakeOver@gmail.com, like the official DJ Storms business page. And I may just send you an invite to join the official DJ Storms Posse group on Facebook. All of those links are in the description. We got a big weekend coming to us. I plan on going live early in the morning on Saturday at 10 a.m. for a special edition of the Lightning Flash Update before Night of Champions. And of course, on Saturday, we got ourselves Garrett Mountain Mania presented to us by ISPW. That is at 6 p.m. in Woodland Park this Saturday, May 27th. And then, of course, on May 28th, I got myself the Rewind for WWE Night of Champions at 2 p.m. And then next Monday, Memorial Day, I will be having Robert of the Philly Sports Talk podcast back on the channel again to review the results for AEW Double or Nothing. That is at 2 p.m. on Memorial Day. Please make sure you share out this stream and this video on all platforms of social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, Tumblr. Be sure to check out all the links down below regarding hardcore sports. We are looking to be the #1 brand in all of sports analytics, talking about wrestling, UFC, football, baseball, basketball, everything that you could possibly imagine. Of course, hit the subscribe button and hit that notifications bell with a huge coup de grace. That way you will know whenever I pop up on YouTube. Because whenever I pop up on YouTube, you already know it's the best time to be on YouTube. Anyway, we're not going to waste any more time. Enough of these self-brand promotion and the advertisements. Let's get straight into these questions right here. Now, Vic, for those that do not know of how you started, please take us back through the origins of Vik Dalishus.
Whew. Way back, huh? Well, I've been doing this for a while now. So my origin story begins in 2001. I've always been a fan of pro wrestling. I always wanted to be a pro wrestler. I grew up in Poughkeepsie, New York. So that is the home of the Mid-Hudson Civic Center, which is a very famous pro wrestling venue that the WWF used back in the day for a lot of Monday Night Raws and a lot of tapings. Like Macho Man Randy Savage debuted in the Mid-Hudson Civic Center, just kind of from there. So when I was a kid, my dad used to take me to wrestling. My dad loved wrestling. My dad went to the first 8 WrestleManias. So the wrestling bug was definitely kind of like in and around my family. So the first time I ever saw wrestling, I knew I wanted to do it. It was Thanksgiving. I was watching the Survivor Series because all the family was there, and I didn't feel like being around the family. And wrestling was on. I sat and I watched it, and I was like, I'm going to do that. I want to be that. And from then on, everything I did and every choice I made was to be a wrestler. So I was that kid in school who wore the wrestling T-shirts, who everybody knew loved wrestling. Like I was that guy. And coincidentally, I went to school with Hale. So the two of us were in high school together, and we used to wrestle in the hallways. We used to wrestle on the mats outside at school, like in the recess and stuff. And he was a big ECW fan. So we would go to the ECW shows, and Hale would sit front row. You can actually see him at RVD versus Jerry Lynn. Hale's in the front row in a bright blue shirt.
I got to look that shit up.
Yeah, dude, it's good. It's good stuff. There's a couple cool Easter eggs you'd be able to find me and Hale at like wrestling shows from back in the day. There's a couple Monday Night Raws where I'm there with my dad, like at the Mid-Hudson Civic Center. I went to WrestleMania 8. I was at the Montreal Screwjob.
Wow.
I went to some cool wrestling shows when I was a kid. I had like some cool things like that. So Hale had started at wrestling school straight out of high school. And I went to Utica College to play football upstate in New York. And I was playing football for 1 year, and it was going all right. And then the next year, we were doing practices and whatnot, and there was going to be a Monday Night Raw at Pepsi Arena in Albany. So I asked anybody if they wanted to go, and nobody else wanted to go with me. So I literally drove down there by myself, bought a ticket, and went and sat as high up as you could go. My back was against the wall of the top of the building. And I remember that in the first few matches, they announced that the local guys that were wrestling were from Albany, New York. And it was Dave Danger and JP Black versus the APA, and then Jeff Starr versus Haku. And I was like, well, if they're from Albany, that means there's got to be a wrestling school around here somewhere. And then coincidentally, the guys who had been in those matches had a local newspaper story written about them. And my parents sent me the newspaper article about where this wrestling school was in Schenectady, New York, called World of Hurt Wrestling. So as soon as I got the article, I said, hey, Dad, you want to come with me? And he did. And we met there. And as soon as I walked in the building, it was an old bowling alley. And I saw a wrestling ring. It was legit. And that was it for me. I signed up right there. It was $1,000 on the spot, and then another $1,000 like over the period of time that I was like training. So my dad helped me pay it to start with, and that was how I got started. World of Hurt Wrestling, 2001.
It's pretty crazy, like how it all worked out. And one thing that's even crazier is the fact that you and Hale, the story with you and Hale, it's almost Edge and Christian-esque, where you guys started in high school and coincidentally you became professional wrestlers together, and you eventually went on to become multi-time tag team champions in multiple different promotions. That right there is probably one of the coolest things when it comes to seeing wrestlers come up from virtually nothing, virtually unknowns, and you become this well-known tag team in your area. But now, growing up, you mentioned Haku as well and superstars like that. You said you were at the Montreal Screw Job with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. If you could elaborate, who were some of your biggest inspirations growing up?
When I was a little kid, I was a big Hulkamaniac. I
I
loved
could
the
tell
Hulk.
you're flexing the pythons a lot at these shows.
Yeah, man. And you'll catch me doing a Hulk Hogan-esque entrance sometimes with the blowing out my cheeks and the puffing and pointing. I just find it hilarious. So I was a Hulkamaniac when I was a kid. And like I remember at WrestleMania 8 standing on my chair. My dad had floor seats. It was really awesome. He really, to take me to my first WrestleMania was really cool. And I remember
I'm gonna have to
standing on
find
my
little
chair.
Vic on Peacock.
Yeah, you might. There is a couple like like shots where they show the whole floor where I could point it out and be like, "That's me right there." Like how Edge does at WrestleMania 6, where you can see where he is at the
Yeah,
Sky Dome.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so yeah, so at that one, I was standing on my chair screaming for the Hulkster, and the cool thing was all weekend there were rumors going on that the Ultimate Warrior some people had seen the Ultimate Warrior. People had supposedly seen him. And then he came back and saved Hogan from Sid Justice and Papa Shango. It was a big surprise. And it was like, as a kid, feeling the energy of that in that room, like in that building, it was intense. Like I remember just ripping my Hulk Hogan shirt off and screaming and yelling and doing all the things as a little kid. So, I was into the energy, looking back on it a lot as a little kid. And then as I became more into like the wrestling, I was a technical wrestling fan. So Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart were two of my favorite wrestlers. I liked guys with face paint. I thought face paint wrestlers were awesome because it meant like they were going to war. So I liked Demolition. I liked like even Powers of Pain or Legion of Doom, Sting, Ultimate Warrior. I really got the idea that pro wrestling allowed you to be somebody else than who you really were when I was really young. So I was creating characters for myself when I was just a kid. And I would always spend time in school where I was just like designing wrestling gear for my pretend characters. And then I got involved in something called like e-roleplay, where you like are like in these feds on the chat boards online, and you like create a character and like you put people through your wrestler through these like simulation wrestling matches and stuff. So I was just so into all aspects of wrestling when I was a kid. And I guess like those guys, the ones I specifically mentioned, would be my inspiration to directly answer your question.
And you did mention that you became more of a technical wrestling fan as time went on. Is that mainly what you base your style on? Because I've seen a lot of your matches, especially when it comes to singles action, and I've seen that you're a little bit more explosive as well, especially in the recent tag team match that you competed against the new Backseats in Wayne, New Jersey, and I saw the intensity, the explosivity that you had, especially on the suplexes that you were delivering. So, if you could elaborate on your style of wrestling, did it start out technical and then did it become more intense, more explosive over time?
Yeah, I've had to dial back my explosiveness and my intensity in the ring a lot to um, put it in the right place. Sometimes it's like misguided energy when you're younger and you don't know like where the right place to be intense is, and you can exhaust yourself pretty pretty quick in a wrestling match if you're intense at the wrong times and you're not using your breathing. And it's hard to wrestle 25, 30 minutes all the time if you're not comfortable.
You got to work up to that crescendo.
Yeah, if you're not comfortable with your environment. So I forgot what I was just saying. I apologize. What were we?
you were talking about how you had to dial back your intensity over time.
Oh, sorry. I apologize. Being me in the ring, it works out really well for things like when it's time for that big tag and I can come in there and just kind of start throwing people around. But in a regular wrestling match, it was explained to me as when I first started out, not first started out, but as I got to Ohio Valley Wrestling for WWE and I trained under Rip Rogers, where the way that you put a match together, certain things fit in certain places, and you're not going to start out a match trying to go for your finishing move. That's not even how a video game would work. So I wanted to be the best at starting, like at all aspects of it. So there's a thing called chain wrestling where it's from hold to hold to hold to hold without you ever breaking contact with a person. And I had an amateur background. I wrestled in high school. I made it to the state wrestling tournament. I got 4th place in New York. So I had an amateur wrestling background and played football. I was, explosive in that too. I was a lineman. So my athletic background led me to bring some of those things into the ring with me. But as time goes on in wrestling, you sacrifice being able to showcase some of the things that you can do for the sake of the match. Now that what I just said might be I'm not sure where your listeners are as far as comprehension of pro wrestling, but
they're pretty well equipped.
Okay. So there's just certain things that you got to do at certain times in certain ways to make sure it all makes sense to everybody, and your style has to reflect making you stand out. And for me, adding some of the technical wrestling that I saw, some of my favorite wrestlers, Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. I was a big Chris Jericho fan.
Who wasn't?
Yeah, right. And then as I got into wrestling and I got to be around some of the guys and I got to learn what I should be watching and who the great ones were. And I don't want to discount any of the people that I watched. I watched wrestling. I searched out wrestling to watch when I was a kid. I went and saw everything. So I was watching the NWA and WCW and WWF, and I'd watch Global Wrestling that was on ESPN, and I would find tapes at the local flea markets or anything I get my hands on. I was watching all kinds of wrestling. So it's hard to just narrow it down Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart were my guys, but that's kind of that style of wrestling. So I watched Mick Foley matches, and I thought Mick Foley was awesome. That the fact that his pain tolerance was different than everybody else, and his quote was that he couldn't jump very high, so he would jump from high places. And I thought that was badass too. And the fact that he could do all these things and act like he wasn't seemingly feeling it, I thought, man, wouldn't that be something to just be impervious to pain when you're in the ring? And then part of me was wanting to showcase my personality as well. So that has to fit in there, depending on whether you're a good guy or a bad guy when you're wrestling. So your personality is a little bit different for what you show people, depending on if you're being cheered or booed. When you're being cheered, you're a lot more endearing and you have a lot more fire. And when people are booing you, it doesn't necessarily feel good. And you can taunt them, or you could be angry about it, or all kinds of things. So.
And that right there, I would have to say that definitely can also depict what a wrestler is like in the ring. But one thing for sure, and what you just said regarding the different aspects of wrestling and the different aspects of a match when it comes to technical wrestling, chain wrestling, the intensity factor, that actually reminds me of something that Michael Mars talked about when I interviewed him back in January. Very nice guy, actually. But Speaking of your character, let's talk about your name for a second. How exactly did you come up with the name Vik Dalishus? I've been thinking that for the last year, I would say. When I first laid eyes on you and Hale, I would probably have to say it was 80s WrestleCon 2022 when you won the Demolition Cup.
Nice. Yep. That was the first time I remember meeting you. So yeah, that was probably it. Um, so I was driving down the road on my way to wrestling practice, and they told me that I was gonna have my first match pretty soon, and I needed to come up with a name. And I knew that I really wanted to do something where I was like a little bit Heartbreak Kid boy toy esque, Shawn Michaels-y, and I also wanted to be like a badass. So there was a tag team in WCW called Vicious and Delicious with Buff Bagwell and Scott Norton. And I just decided to change Vicious to Vic, and I changed the spelling of Delicious, and I became Vik Dalishus. And I thought that that name, Vicious and Delicious, would allow me to be like high impact and hard hitting, as well as be cocky and blow kisses at pretty girls.
And it's so weird because it works out so well too. And I actually had to take a double take when I saw your name first time. I was like, "That's delicious, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, it is." But
You'd be
it's crazy how.
screwed up the spelling of it. There's actually, I've have like a short journal chronicle of how many different ways it's been spelled and how many opportunities I've had where I'm like, like being on like, like a cool show and it shows at the bottom my name spelled wrong, like, or in a program and it's not correct or something like that.
And then that next show, I'm gonna have to. You got to show me because I'm actually very very curious to see how many times. And I relate to that because people spell my first name wrong because like the D stands for Dominic, but it's Dominick, and people are always not putting the K or they're not putting the C, or instead they replace one of the middle I's with an E, and I'm like, people, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing, man? But for sure the name it just fits so perfectly. But I want to transition now. I want to talk about you and Hale for a minute.
Perfectly. I'll tell you a funny story. When I first got to WWE and I would do like dark matches and stuff, the person that would decide your name that night was Sergeant Slaughter. So you had to go up to them and they'd be like, okay, I'm wrestling. Like my first match was against Sean O'Hare. And he goes, okay, well, what's your wrestling name? And I said, Vik Dalishus. And he said, what's your real name? And I said, Rob Begley. And he goes, from now on, you're Rob Begley. And then just walked away. So anytime I ever have like my WWE stuff, if you search for my real name, you'll find matches for me, but not under Vik Dalishus because Sergeant Slaughter hated it.
Oh my god, that's
And
ridiculous.
he was the only one. So like it was
He was
for
the
a
only
long
one
time.
that hated it.
Dude, he was the only guy literally between me and that whiteboard for having my name be whatever it was. And like he was he wrote it on the board, so you didn't have any other way to get past him. Like he decided he didn't like that name and I was gonna be Rob Begley. So
You were a maggot to him.
yeah. Well, you can see
But
one of my matches if you search for Rob Begley.
yes, yeah, please send me that if you can because I really got to see this.
All
But
right, you got
But I want to talk about you and Hale for a minute now. Collectively, you are known as the Now. You've been a tag team for 15 plus years at this rate.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
So now you've been a main staple in ISPW since the relaunch when you joined up with the company in late 2021. I want to know, how did you guys originally form the team? I know you went to high school together. You pretty much got into wrestling at the same time as well. But I believe I researched Hale a little bit, and he actually started out as a singles wrestler for the first couple years, and then you formed around 2005, I believe. So
Yep.
if you could, how did you two actually come together to form the Now?
Well, Hale was actually wrestling as the Now, Hale Collins, by himself for probably like a month. And he told me about his new name and where he got it from and what he thought of it. And I was like, man, that name is awesome. Like, I feel like we could be the Now. And he's like, well, let's do it. Let's do it. And I had just had a match with CM Punk on Sunday Night Heat that didn't go. The match was good, but it wasn't what WWE wanted. So instead of CM Punk debuting, they sent him down to OVW, and the match never aired on TV. So it was supposed to be a match for me that was going to get me noticed and get me a really great opportunity. And when I came through the curtain, everyone was super, like clapping for me, telling me, man, that was awesome. What a great match. What a great match. And after a few hours went by, they told me that they did not like the match and that it wasn't what they were looking for and blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot that goes into that story. I can tell another time, but it left me back in OVW feeling frustrated that I still hadn't gotten a regular performer contract. And I was like struggling to get noticed. And I went down to their other developmental territory, Deep South, that was being run by Bill DeMott, and I gave a shot there for a few weeks, and I just got more discouraged because it felt like I was starting at the bottom and having like a whole new group of guys that I was going to try to have to stand out from, and the opportunity to team with Hale just seemed like something I wanted to do, so I moved back home, and I left. I was down in Georgia. I stopped down in Florida for just a little while to see some family, and then I came back home to New York, and from there we teamed, and we didn't stop from there.
And it really worked out so well. You guys actually complement each other beautifully. Probably one of the best looking tag teams from a visual standpoint as well, and from an in-ring standpoint too. And it's something so simple too. Just the Now. Who would have thought that something so simple would have been the key to success?
Yeah, we got great advice when we first started that it was an idea that was timeless, and that you're looking for in wrestling to hatch your wagon to an idea that can be reinvented over time, and something that doesn't get old or stale. And what doesn't get more old and stale than the Now? And it was something we felt really strongly about, and something that we thought that we really represented for a very long time in pro wrestling, was that we were the Now. And we were so Now that we weren't even getting we were getting held back. So there's just like, it's weird to look back at your own career and think of different opportunities or different things and what they meant and stuff like that, but the Now turned out to be the best life lesson that I could have ever had. It was like something that was right in front of my face the whole time, which is cool.
And you guys were able to create a great chant too that everyone can do. It's pretty much like Daniel Bryan's Yes chant, or the Stone Cold What chant. Everybody can do it.
Yes, and it works in every venue. It works every place, and it brings everybody together. Even the ones that don't necessarily like us, you see them go "No" out the side of their mouth.
You see them off to the side. They're quietly chanting behind everybody's backs because they don't want to admit it, but they're secret fans.
It's pretty cool. It's one of the things that Hale loves to do it. Sometimes I got to hold him back from he gets in the ring, he just starts, "Where do you want it?" He's into it. So
he's like the big I wouldn't want to say the mouthpiece, because I mean both of you bring a certain level of intensity, both of you bring a great level of energy, and both of you are phenomenal professional wrestlers, but it seems as though he's more of the talker, and when you get in the ring, you definitely do your talking in the ring, and people do not want to mess with Vik Dalishus when he gets on a roll.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I never really looked at it from that perspective, but that is the case, isn't it?
I actually want to stick with you and Hale here for a minute. First of all, let's talk about the promotion that you are currently representing right now, the NWA. Both of you are currently in the Crockett Cup tournament,
Yep.
and you are going to the next round. You are fighting Tyrus and Adonis, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Nope.
And
the match that we have to wrestle Maxime the Impaler and Judeus first.
oh, really? Oh, yeah. I thought Did I miss it? Did I miss? Oh, I probably skipped over that.
So that someone filled out a bracket that I saw online where they projected that we would get there. But that
It's gonna come true. I have full confidence.
I don't know. It's pretty crazy, man. We're gonna wrestle Maxine and Paler, who her like right now that gimmick is on fire in the NWA, and Jude, who's just like big giant dude, and Sinister Minister is like right there at ringside, which I think is super cool. James Mitchell is one of my favorite characters in wrestling, and the idea that for the Crockett Cup, that's our first round match, and our second round match, if we win that one, is the NWA World Heavyweight Champion and the guy who challenged him at the last pay-per-view, Chris Adonis. So there's no better chance to grab everybody's attention than getting into that match. So there is absolute urgency and necessity to win that first round match. You'd have to kill me to lose that match because I want to be in the ring with the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, and I have a lot to prove. And if and when we beat them, we will have everybody's attention. So,
and I'm definitely looking forward to that match. And I could not be happier for you and Hale that Billy Corgan definitely saw something in you both, because you are, in my eyes at least, and I'm not trying to kiss up, but I definitely believe that you two are easily the most underrated tag team that we have in the country right now, and you should easily be on a stage like an NWA and bigger.
well, thank you. I very much appreciate that, and hopefully we'll prove that in 2 weeks.
But let's transition over to ISPW for a minute. You guys actually became two-time ISPW Tag Team Champions after you got a victory over the Silk City Kings and the New Backseats back at ISPW Rage in the Cage in West Milford. I was there live. I recorded everything, got some nice footage. I wanted to know, what is it like to represent ISPW as its tag team champions, especially after that major win, and you guys beat the Powers of Pain and the Headbangers back at the 80s WrestleCon Rock and Wrestling show legitimately under 3 weeks ago.
Yep. I have a lot of gratitude for Tommy Fierro on ISPW. So it's crazy to think of like how it's all come about and how we've gotten to where we are, but it's one of the number one independent promotions in the country right now, and the coverage that they get on Busted Open, just that in and of itself is worth dealing with Dave in the locker room.
Don't let Dave LaGreca see this.
It's awesome. Tommy Fierro's gone out of his way to make it a must-see product and something that everybody should want to at least know the results of and get their hands on some of the action. There's different styles of independent wrestling, okay? And there's different ways that you can do this whole thing. And some independent promotions across the country are, the guys are just like working really, really, really super hard for 20, 30 minutes each, and they're having these long matches. And then at ISPW, we're having family-friendly shows. And there's the matches that will go 20, 30 minutes that are putting in the time, but that story is there. There's a reason that it's happening. And it's not to cut anybody down. It's just to boost ISPW up, in my opinion. They do a great job with putting their shows together. The consistency of how we've been running from week to week and month to month. If you compare year over year from last year to this year, it's doubled in business, and that's amazing. We have repeat towns that we go to now, which is even cooler. The places that haven't got tired of us yet.
I don't think Butler is ever gonna. I don't think West Milford's ever gonna get tired of you.
No, it's awesome. And being in those places, for me, I've worked a lot of Massachusetts, a lot of Connecticut, a lot of New York, even Vermont, even Pennsylvania. But New Jersey, I only did a little tiny bit in the beginning of my career, and I didn't get to do a lot other than that. So having the chance to do it now is really awesome. And there was a point in my career where I thought I was done wrestling completely. I was out of this whole thing. And Tommy Fierro and ISPW is the reason I'm even here doing this right now, is he convinced me that I could do it. So, I have like I said, I have a lot of gratitude for ISPW, and I love it there. It's one of my favorite places that I've ever wrestled.
And speaking of ISPW, you actually you didn't split away from Hale. You still remained the Now, but there was a period of time between November and April where you guys actually dabbled a little bit in singles action. You actually wrestled Michael Mars and HC Loke back at St. Valentine's Vengeance in February in Avenal in a tri-state championship match, and then you fought Justin Carino back at the Westwood event on March 11th. I was there. I was there for the Westwood one. I'm still kicking myself because I haven't been able to make it down to Avenal yet. But I saw both of those matches, and I know a lot of people have. So some people have leaned a little bit more towards Hale to break out as, I want to say, the Dax Harwood of the Now tag team. But you've shown yourself that you're not to be denied as a singles competitor. You can hang in the ring as a singles competitor. You can wrestle. You're not just some guy that's going to rely on tag team wrestling in order to get your career over. You are a very accomplished singles wrestler in yourself. Now that you are the tag team champions, obviously you have an obligation to keep those titles and to make sure that those titles are the most sought after tag team titles in the state. But if you could possibly give us a little spoiler into the future, could we potentially see a return to singles action?
Well, last weekend I wrestled Rick Recon, and it was we did 20 minutes. And
I hope they post that match because I really want to see that one.
Nope, nobody recorded it.
Nobody. Rob Williams, if you're watching, where were you, man? I rely on you.
Oh. Well, it was actually good that we didn't record it because it allowed us an opportunity to do some things that we didn't normally do if it was going to be posted and shown to the whole world that way. So it was like a house show, for lack of a better description, and it was a series of really good matches, and there was no pressure on everybody, and they had a really good time. So that was one that if you weren't there, you missed a good one. So a little peek behind the curtain.
Myself even more right now. You're killing me, Vic. You're killing me.
Sorry. Little peek behind the curtain, though. The reason that we did a lot of singles stuff is I had a injury last year in October. I had a screw taken out of my ankle that was from a previous surgery. 2017, I shattered my right leg, and I had a couple different issues with that back then. And now that we're going to take the screw out to try and increase my range of motion and some things like that, and it ended up getting infected. So I was in a pretty bad way for a few months there. And Hale was doing the majority of the work because I just couldn't. So to keep our name out there and keep him from getting rusty and all that good stuff, because we still had NWA commitments we were going to have to do the beginning of this year. So when it came time for February of this year, I wanted to get back into the ring and kind of test myself and see how I was progressing. So I train and I get in the ring locally, but it's different when you have fans. So I wanted to do it in a singles match, and the match that became the tri-state title match was because I literally showed up and I felt good enough to say, like, let's try. And that was my first foray into the ring. So, and the match with Justin Carino, I've always wanted to wrestle Justin Carino. And his career is something that I just followed as I follow a lot of people, and I've known a lot of people since the beginning of their careers. I just have always paid attention. Something I've liked to do is just follow this business and who's in it. And especially when you have a gimmick like the New Heavenly Bodies, Dr. Tom Pritchard was an influence in my career. So I knew who he was. And to have a chance to go one-on-one with him, I took it. And that's really just why. As far as going back to singles competition for right now, the both of us really, we're not interested. So we want to stay tag team wrestling right now and ride this train until the wheels fall off.
Oh no, I completely understand that, and I respect that as well. You both are committed because at the end of the day, I personally do think that you are stronger together than separate. But I would definitely love to see another match between you and Justin Carino very very soon. Speaking of matches,
Next time
it's safe to say.
I have Bull. I want a match with Bull.
Well, match with Bull. I mean, Hale got the match with Bull, and he was this
Yep.
close to becoming a world champion. Highly entertaining stuff right there. So,
Well, I'm
looks
gonna do
like
it.
the world champion could be in jeopardy. I guess you'll be watching that match between Rick Recon and Bull James on Saturday.
Indeed, I will, sir.
But sticking with the matches, I think it's safe to say you've been involved in a lot of matches throughout the course of your career. You are a 20-plus year veteran, 22 years and counting as we speak. I know I may be putting you on the spot with this one, but I want to know, what is that one match that really sticks out to you? What do you feel has been your best match to date? Could be any match, singles, tag team, doesn't matter.
I'm pretty proud of the match we had just a few weeks ago in the Mid Hudson Civic Center. Hale and myself against Danny Moff and Adam Kerr for Northeast Wrestling.
Hmm.
Uh, the Mid Hudson Civic Center, again, is a place that we've had a long storied history. And that match came about as an opportunity to get back in there and team. We hadn't teamed up in the Civic Center in 13 years. So
13 years, wow.
yeah, because we had done House of Hardcore for Tommy Dreamer, but we did separate stuff. We weren't a team. So the opportunity was there, and the match was just amazing. And it hit all the notes we wanted it to hit, and it got all the feels. I had my kids in the crowd, which was really something I've really started to cherish this last year, is having my family be able to like come and watch and really get into the wrestling shows, which is kind of cool. And we're just right now we just have like a different, I don't want to say it's a, I mean, it's a confidence, and it's just like a swagger when we're in the ring. Like, we know that we're ready. We know that we're good. We know that we're capable, and like we want to have like the best matches. Like, as you always think as you're like doing wrestling and you're younger and stuff, that you're always going to have like the next match. And as you get a little bit more into this, you realize the next match like may not come. That you may not have that next match, and it may be from something that happens in between the matches where it's not even something you anticipate. It doesn't even have to be something that happens when you're in there. So, I'm at the point in my career where every match means a lot to me, because I've been laying in hospital beds where I didn't think I was ever going to be able to do this again. They told me they were going to cut my leg off twice. Like, I've had it where you weren't going to be able to ever do this again. So every match to me is a lot. It means a lot. And this is like my favorite thing to do in the whole world. So every time you see me in there, just know that I'm having the best time ever.
And
And
I can definitely see it. I can definitely see it too. I definitely see a new sense of confidence, definitely a new sense of motivation that I didn't really see when you guys first came to ISPW. I'm not even lying. I remember watching the classic videos. They're from 2 years ago, but regardless, they're classic because of the relaunch. When it
yeah,
relaunched back towards late 2021, I remember when you guys first came into ISPW, especially with the shows in Total and the shows in Butler, Christmas Chaos, and the Championship Rumble towards the end of 2021. And I look back at that and I look at you guys now, and you definitely have that new sense of motivation, that new sense of fire. And it really is a great thing to see. And we definitely need more of that in the wrestling industry. But I want to switch gears back to NWA for a minute. And I actually did some research on this. You guys actually fought the Briscoe brothers towards, I believe it was the end of April or the end of May last year. And that was about 8 months before Jay Briscoe unfortunately passed away. But seeing that the Briscoes have done so much for tag team wrestling, and they have done so much for independent professional wrestling as well, and they've wrestled so many teams where The young tag teams were cutting their teeth on the independent scene, looking to get to where the Briscoes are. What did that match mean to you and Hale, or at least to you? I know you can't speak for Hale, but what did that match mean to you and your career?
The confidence that you just spoke of came from that opportunity, and it was the fact that when we were in there with the Briscoes, it was like we were equals, and we had a lot to prove. We were the last team that was announced for the Crockett Cup. We were basically nobody knew who we were, like getting there, and we had no idea what we were walking into. We had always, being in the NWA was something that we wanted to do. It was a goal for us, like trying to climb the ladder, and the NWA was a step in that ladder. And to have an opportunity to go and wrestle the team that we felt was the best out there in the world, they picked us to see if we could hang with them, and we could. We had an amazing match. It was match number 2 that I'm most proud of in my wrestling career, because we weren't afraid to just bring it. Like, it was, we were hitting each other as hard as we could. We were doing all the moves. We weren't holding anything back, and we were trying to like make a name for ourselves. And it worked out well because we got brought back in the NWA, and we had a whole year's worth of stories that we were able to participate in because of that match. We also got to wrestle those guys, not knowing that it was going to be a short time before there was never going to be another one. So we feel lucky to have that opportunity, because the best tag teams in the world, there's a certain like chemistry you have when you wrestle each other, and it's a passing down of like styles and information, and like just saying you were in there with each other. And that's like, a lot of people won't have that chance ever again with the Briscoes, and we were afforded that opportunity, and they treated us like equals. We brought it, and it helped us to get brought back into the NWA. And it's really the reason why we have the Crockett Cup opportunity this year, and why we're one of the people that they're talking about. So,
And that right there, it really is a beautiful thing. That's probably one of the best things to see for me personally as a professional wrestling fan. One thing I do want to also bring up is the fact that throughout your career, you have managed to keep yourself in phenomenal shape. Probably right now, I think you may be in the best shape of your life. You have not lost any muscle mass whatsoever. You got the pythons going, man. You definitely got the pythons. Hulk Hogan would be proud. But I wanted to ask, how do you keep yourself in such good shape? Or what does like a normal workout routine look like for Vik Dalishus?
well, I was not always in shape. I have struggled with my body my entire career. It was one of the reasons why I was always told I wouldn't get hired by WWE. It was my body. And it was
Or do
always a
they look
struggle.
foolish now?
Yeah, it's a lot different now. When I was, you have to look at the time period in which I was trying to get a job. When I was younger, it was WWE SmackDown from 2003 to 2007 or 8, and that's like everybody looks like an Abercrombie model, and they're just 6'4", 6'5", and they're shredded. And that wasn't me. It was never going to be me. My body started to change for me in a really good way when I got sober and stopped drinking alcohol. And for me, I just used it as a crutch too much. It was like I didn't want the party to end, so it became a problem for me. And I would diet, and I would get in shape, and I would try to do all the things and go into the gym. And I was a certified personal trainer, and I was managing a gym, and I was in all the places and doing all the things. But my personal life wasn't in the best way. So when I got myself sober and I started to focus on actually giving the right nutrition to my body, learning what fasting was and how it could benefit me. I use intermittent fasting, where you don't eat for 16 hours a day, but then in the other hours of the day, you can just eat as much as you want. And that worked out well for me. I noticed that my body was starting to change, and I lost over 100 pounds doing that process. So I had gone through a divorce, and I was, like just becoming a new version of myself, really, and trying to figure out how did I get to this point in my life. And the gym became like a really big part of an energy burner. And I just wanted to be healthy too. And I was finding that I was getting the results for the first time in the gym, where previously I hadn't been getting results, and I would feel like I was spinning my wheels. And it's hard to be a trainer for people when you're giving them advice and you don't look like the advice that you're giving them. And for me, that was something I struggled with. And the pandemic helped me out in that way, because I was able to focus on my body, and I got in the best shape I had ever been in. So I was really ready for wrestling to come back when it did, because I'd given my body a break where I wasn't necessarily like wrestling. And I had dieted, I'd gotten sober, I had gotten my body in shape spiritually, and physically I was a totally different person than I was before. So.
And that right there, that really does take a lot of courage. That takes a lot of willpower. That takes a lot of motivation. And I need to say, I applaud you for that. And after that, I definitely have even more respect for you than I did when you came into this interview. So props to you, sir. And you're doing some great stuff, man. You really are. But we have come to the end. And my final question to you, Mr. Dalishus, I will have to ask, what can we expect from you in the near future?
The near future, I would say, I'm very much looking forward to the ISPW show next weekend. It's the Green Mountain...
Garrett Mountain Mania.
Yes. I saw the poster for it today, so that's going to be a lot of fun. That's our last match before we head to the NWA. And I would say everybody check out the Crockett Cup on Fight TV. We just posted a video today that we're recording this, but you can search for it on my social media. It is a video that kind of chronicles a little bit of our career for how we got into this spot today. It's with the theme from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. We do a little bit of time traveling to go back to other versions of ourselves to talk about how our destiny is become the Crockett Cup winners and the World Tag Team Champions. So we're looking to fulfill that destiny next weekend, and we have a lot behind us. So I would say in the near future, you're going to want to check that out. Fight TV, if you're not in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So that's the only way to check it out.
I'm telling you, man, I'm definitely looking forward to that. And I wish you the best of luck, sir. Like I said, you are doing some really good material, and I cannot wait to see what you do in the near future.
Thank you very much for this interview, man. I wish you the best of luck. I appreciate you being prepared and asking all the right stuff. It's great. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
I try to be as professional as possible. But ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up this edition of the Eye of the Storm. Once again, thank you all for tuning in. I greatly appreciate all of you. One more time, Vic, where can we find you on social media?
At the Now Vic on Twitter, or Vik Dalishus on Instagram, or Vik Hale on Facebook.
That's right. That's right. And of course, you already know the deal with me. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out all the links in the description. He's Vik Dalishus. I'm DJ Storms. This has been the Eye of the Storm. But before we get out of here, there is but one question that everyone needs to answer. Vic, I got to ask you, who runs the IWC?
When do you want it?
Now.
All right, you.
You damn right, baby. Who? But DJ Storms. And I'll catch you guys later.
Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution.